Well, our top story at this hour, just after 7, the National Convention at UNISA in Pretoria has finalized its discussions on the modalities for the national dialogue. SABC News reporter Natasha Phiri joins us now for an update. Natasha, good morning. Talk to us what's happening on your end, of course, as day 2 continues.
Well, thank you so much, Liesl. Of course, in our earlier crossing, we spoke about the importance of, the final day today. Of course, the modalities need to be finalized and the themes, but also the selection of that 30-member steering committee. But joining me now, 2 guests. I'll just start off with Nonkululeko Mtambo, who is from the convention organizing committee. Nonkululeko, thank you so much for joining us in SABC News. There's going to be a steering committee, a committee that will be elected, 30 members. Just talk us through the role of the committee and the importance of this committee leading up to this process.
The role of the committee leading up to this process is absolutely central. It's the people that we are going to be reporting to, taking direction from, and also coordinating around as the different sectors. So this moment is very important, I suppose, to the rest of the national dialogue process, which is the reason why we're here. Yeah.
And perhaps the composition. I understand 30 people are here. There needs to be a composition from civil society, the eminent persons group, government as well. Just talk us through that, please.
Yes, so there's going to be an election. Well, we don't know how. I think the modalities are going to be decided within the different groups, but there's 20 sectors that are going to be represented. This is everything from labor to NPOs, so on and so forth. And then I believe 3 people from the foundations for continuity, 2 members from the presidency, and some experts that we think are going to be helpful to the rest of the case. So it's 20 divided into those parts.
So just clarity before we go to Professor Dirk Godse, you mentioned the foundations, and of course we've seen the legacy foundations, leaving this process and also critiquing it. So which foundations will be left here?
Oh no, there are remaining foundations. I think it's very key to highlight that. I think the stalwarts foundations actually came together and were part of the representation, and the stalwarts include your Dumanokwe, your Charlotte Manya Matlege Foundation, so on and so forth. So there are people here from legacy foundations who are set to do some continuity work for us.
Okay. Nonkululeko, let me just park this conversation now and just bring in Professor Dirk Godse. Prof, you've heard what Nonkululeko had to say, but I think your general observation of the sort of conversations that have been happening, people are saying that these are issues that, have been raised before. It's nothing new. 80% of these issues are in the NDP. What's the difference this time around?
Well, I think they will have to explain that to us still. I think this is unfolding. This is and this is where the steering committee and the process afterwards is going to will clarify it more. I think yesterday was very much trying to explore what are the possibilities and in which direction it must go. I think you are very much correct that some of the issues are actually more like government issues, matters that actually were raised during last year's election, and the election mandates to a large extent should address them actually. I think what the convention and the dialogue in general is supposed to do is bring back actually civil society. And society in general, those who are not involved in formalized politics or in government, in order to have an ongoing discussion and dialogue and become more directly involved in the day-to-day events and the matters that affect them directly. I think in the past what has happened is that the public in general has become, a distance developed actually between government and the public, and this process will hopefully bring them closer together, as well as become involved in talking about very difficult issues, that are not done on a day-to-day basis within government and parliament. And I think that is where this initiative might be, or hopefully will, play a very important role.
Prof, it might be too early to judge what's happening here at the National Convention. The Legacy Foundations have implored all those at this gathering to ensure that it's a transparent process, citizen-led, and of course those that are here must be truth to power. Do you think, in your observation, what you've seen yesterday, is it a citizens-led process? We saw protests outside. We saw some issues here that were bone of contention being raised on various platforms. Do you think, in your observation, is it a citizens-led process?
Well, it's not completely citizens-led. I think it's a combination of the two. Without government and the formal structures, it will be impossible to have an event like this or a process like this. The budget, for example, must come from them. A lot of the infrastructure, the persons involved in order to organize it must come from them. But if we look at the eminent persons group, it is entirely from outside government and political parties. And I hope that, well, except for maybe now two, as we heard, the majority of the steering committee will also be like that. So in that sense, I think there is a strong citizens component, but now the real challenge is for the citizens themselves, now afterwards, how the public of South Africa going to volunteer to become involved in this, and that's going to be the big test.
Thank you so much, Prof. Of course, raising very pertinent questions. Then, of course, Nonkululeko also just taking us through the very important selection there of, the committee, the steering committee that will take this process further. Remember, 30 members need to be selected today to actually take this process further. But of course, we're still here throughout the day, and we'll be reporting on the various developments in and around the National Convention. With that said, it's back to you in studio, Liesl.
All right, thanks, Natasha. We are following that roadmap, of course, that will be laid out today.